Hey everyone, it's Alex, and an absolutely massive OTA update has just dropped in Marvel Snap. Doctor Doom is back. One of my absolute favorite cards in the game has gotten buffed back to its original state, and we've got a whole bunch of changes to talk about today in a new format. Let me know what you think of this new format where I'm trying to lay out information way more clearly and be less fancy, but overall just be more legible. Let's get started. What I'm going to say is that Doctor Doom, has always been Doctor Doom up until the last month or two where it got nerfed in advance of the Spider-Ham change, which is kind of crazy. And in fact, that's what they say right here. Spider-Ham was kind of like supposed to be a counter to the Doctor Doom style games where like if Spider-Ham hits Doom, it's basically a useless card. And so the nerf prior was kind of surprising. So Doctor Doom getting buffed back is pretty significant, especially since they note that like the prevalence of control in the shape of like Professor X and stuff does negate some of the power output that Doctor Doom is capable of. So here's a potential deck for you. I actually do really like On Reveal here. It's pretty cool. It goes very, very wide, but right now the meta is fixated on going very, very tall, which is what the Absorbing Man combo is doing right now with Brood and Mr. Sinister with the Silver Surfer and Patriot. So like this list might need some nerfs to some really top tier archetypes in order to be genuinely viable. But if you're relatively new to Marvel Snap, it's cheap outside of Jeff and Echo, but these are easy replacements, right? You can take Jeff out, you can add someone like Lizard, even you can go Echo, you can take it out, put Iceman in there, you can even remove someone like Wave, and you can include Storm to give you some location correction where you can access the the effects of White Tiger and Doctor Doom while your opponent cannot, right? That's a really good idea. But overall, it's a very interesting change, but it's interesting for another reason as well. This might be an actual shadow buff to the best deck in the game right now, which is the Absorbing Man, Brood, and Sinister combo. The reason for that is because Patriot loves these Doombots. The Doombots benefit from Patriot, so now you've added an additional power, and we're going to be talking about a card soon that just got nerfed that maybe would get taken out of that list and just Doctor Doom being slapped in there instead. So potentially the best deck in the game just got better with this change. So be cautious out there, because I think that this isn't the last time we're going to be seeing Doctor Doom. However, what I will say is I don't think it's Doctor Doom that gets changed. There'll be some other pieces that get nerfed. Moving on. Captain Marvel. Now, this actually breaks my heart. I'm kind of shedding an internal tear here because Captain Marvel is without question one of my favorite cards in the game. My legit waifu in Marvel Snap, and it breaks my heart to see her get changed. And yes, the developers do note that changing her from a 5/6 to a 4/5 did most certainly shake things up. But she's been absolutely ridiculous. She has been absolutely ridiculous. One of the best cards in the game. And that's exactly what they say. In the Angela Craven-based kind of silky smooth deck, as it's come to be known as, has been one of the top performers in the meta. Although a little unreliable, it's a little wild in how it actually performs. It's just a good performer overall, and Captain Marvel is a huge part of that because it does calculate the addition of the Craven buff when it moves at the end of the game. So this deck is certainly being affected by this. You do have, of course, the Jeff and other major components, but moving Captain Marvel to a 4/4 is kind of significant because now you had a 5/6, it goes down to a 4/5, now it's a 4/4. 4 power is still good, but you might want to look for ways to maybe buff that Captain Marvel to have that late game movement impact notable, because if this ever gets nerfed, like if the interaction with Craven and others and the move archetype gets nerfed, then suddenly 4 power is just not enough, because with Craven it feels like 6 into that location. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this responds. I think this might be a really big nerf, to be honest with you. I wonder if when this deck kind of falls out of the meta, if Captain Marvel just dies completely. And then maybe you see an OTA which goes back to 4/5. All right, guys, it happened. It happened. Legion got nerfed. Got nerfed fast, and I'm so sad because this was a card that everyone thought was going to be complete garbage. I always believed in Legion. I thought this card was going to be legit. At first glance, I was like, maybe it's a meme. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what, Cozy? Went on the Snapchat, of course. I don't just talk to myself in the third person and just say Cozy's name. But anyways, I was like, you know what? Maybe this card's actually legit. And sure enough, it's been a meta-defining card. And, well, they nerfed it. They nerfed it to a 5/7. 1 power is pretty significant. A 5/7 stat line is pretty weak. If you consider that 4/6 is a pretty vanilla stat line on something like a White Queen, a Thing, 5/7 is weak. And so, like, it hurts to see this card at 5/7. Even Arrow couldn't survive at 5/7, had to get buffed up to 5/8, and it's still kind of irrelevant. So it feels really bad. It feels really bad. This is a massive change. And what you're probably going to see is it's an attack on, a couple different decks. A lot of decks were using Legion as a control piece, but Boosted Brood was one of the major offenders. That deck we were talking about with the Doctor Doom. And what do you see here? It's Doctor Doom being slapped in the place of Legion, which I think is going to happen, right? You cut Legion out of this deck because the 7 power is just not quite good enough. You don't really need a turn 6. You don't really need the location control in this deck. You benefit from it, sure, but you don't need it in a way that, you might need, say, Doom bots at 7 power. So anyways, what ends up happening here is that you focus here on adding Doom to the list. Doom obviously benefits the Iron Lad, the Blue Marvel, and others, because if you can Iron Lad the Doom, you play Blue Marvel, you have the Patriot, like the Doctor Doom's just insane, right? So Legion, unfortunately, is going down. I think this might hurt it really bad. I think this is going to drop it off quite significantly, and I'm kind of sad, because I'll be honest with you guys, and this is a bit of a side note here, a little bit of a, what's it called, a soliloquy? Is that what it's called when you kind of talk by yourself in drama? I don't know, anyways. I actually liked the idea that we had a powerful card that made exciting plays. Like in Twitch Rivals, I thought Legion was responsible for a lot of exciting plays. I think that as a spectator, a card like this, which is really not that broken, like you don't win or lose based on Legion itself, right? Like, yeah, you can shut people out, you can Luke's bar and all that stuff, I get it. But realistically, Legion was an exciting card. And I think that if Marvel Snap wants to transition it into like a bit of an esport, if you want to do a lot of competitive stuff, I think this card has to be part of the scene. And like, if this card gets completely cut out of the competitive scene, I think it's bad for Snap. I really do think it's bad for Snap. So I think this is heavy-handed. Honestly, I think it's heavy-handed. I would like to see it reverted back to a 5/8, but let's see. Let's see if I'm wrong. Let's see if I'm wrong. But I do think that this might be a little heavy-handed for Legion. Then there's the change to Rockslide. This is actually kind of wild to me. This changes everything about what Rockslide is and what Rocks and Hawks is. And obviously we have the impacted deck above me here, which is the Rocks and Hawks style list, which obviously ran Legion too, and Legion might be gone out of that. But what you have here is a less of a reliance on Zabu. Now, right off the bat, this deck here, which was pretty good in the meta, but actually waning in popularity, right? During the Conquerors event where we had like the competition for the Spectrum variant, we had a lot of Rockslide being played with this Darkhawk style package, right? And Rockslide contributed 5 power, and then you had a Legion with the additional power as well. So what you've taken off this deck is actually 3 whole power, 2 off of the Rockslide, 1 off of the Legion. So this deck's probably in rough shape. So what do you do to it, right? Now you do have a reliance on the rock effect of Rockslide is what makes it strong, not necessarily the power. Moving it to a 3 cost and still having the 2 rocks actually gives you additional opportunity to potentially cut Zabu from this deck. Now this is tricky because if you cut Zabu from the deck, you also impact Darkhawk. So what does the game look like there? Do you play Rockslide turn 3, Darkhawk turn 4, and then you play a Cosmo plus a 2-drop? Is that what it looks like? Cosmo plus a Jeff to protect your Darkhawk? Is that what the game has to look like from that point? But then Shang-Chi and Enchantress, they got to get cut. Like one of them has to get cut. You probably keep Shang-Chi, you cut Enchantress, because now if you cut Zabu from this deck, you can't do the Darkhawk into combination play with Enchantress. Or you got to run someone like a Magic. But then if you run a Magic, you're taking 2 power off of Darkhawk because the extra turn. So this change might seem kind of minute, but it's actually really massive. It's massive because it completely changes the way this archetype is played. And while I agree with the reduction of reliance on Zabu, I think moving a 4-drop to a 3-drop, like there's always going to be more 4-drops coming. I think this just really heavy-handedly hits this archetype, right? So again, I'm going to be interested to see what this does. I think Rockslide's going to be fine because like Rockslide's disruption's still good. You don't really play him for the power. It's crazy to think that this used to be a 4/6 and now it's a 3/3, right? That's an insane change. But those 2 rocks are significant. But unfortunately, I just don't see this deck surviving the way it's designed now. It just can't with the Legion and Rockslide getting nerfed. You're probably going to see Darkhawk decks without Zabu. That's probably the new meta now. So a very big change for Rocks and Hawks. Rockslide, a card that never got played ever before the release of Darkhawk, getting nerfed multiple times. And then Lady Deathstrike. Okay, this is interesting. Goes to a 5/4. What's notable about this is that you had the Forge OTA buff 2 weeks ago. The last OTA had the Forge getting buffed, and so now the Forge is a proximity buff to Lady Deathstrike, and then now you have Lady Deathstrike straight up getting a buff. And remember, when you start working with all these effects, suddenly, like, this is her ability to reach further and further into destroying an entire location, right, or entire lane. So Deathstrike's getting more powerful, and it actually, there are no Lady Deathstrike decks out there. The only ones I've seen floating around, I know there's like a Thanos destroy list that, people have been experimenting with, but like, we'll see if this takes it to the next level. It was never truly consistent, but it had definite potential. My favorite was always Deathstrike C3, but like Deathstrike C3 is done. Like this just dies because obviously it's not a C3 anymore. It's not a 3-power card. So this deck dies. And I think that this was the best version of Lady Deathstrike, honestly. I played it. I liked it. It actually worked. It did its thing, and it did its thing well. As long as you didn't play on top of Cerebro and Mystique, obviously. But it did its thing. And it was cool because you could actually force opponents into the Jean Grey location and then Deathstrike that location. It was pretty cool. It's gone. Now, what's interesting about this, though, is that I think it might piss some people off. Think about it. So, Deathstrike was the card a couple weeks back in the Spotlight caches. It was unanimously, like, it wasn't well received. So, people kind of probably reserved their Spotlight caches. They didn't, like, go after it the way they went after X23 or the way they'll go after Jeff next week. So, now you're in a situation where it's like, okay, the Spotlight cache is gone. The card was unanimously considered poo-poo. And now it gets buffed, like, pretty quickly. And it's not available in the Spotlight caches, and it's 6,000 tokens. So what happens if a deck comes out, like the Thanos variant or whatever, C4, right? That Lady Deathstrike's insane in, right? And then all of a sudden, okay, you got to get Deathstrike. And then now it's like, well, it's not even in the Spotlight cache anymore. So while I do applaud Second Dinner for making these fast changes, with the Spotlight cache system, it can be tricky, especially with how expensive these cards are in tokens and how hard tokens are to come by. But ultimately, this is a pretty significant change. I'm kind of glad they maybe started a little hesitant on the Lady's Deathstrike, because this is the kind of card, if it's too overpowered, then the game feels terrible. Like, if you thought Galactus was bad, this card being too strong is way worse. And that's the OTA for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was a different format. Subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. I really appreciate your support. I hope to catch you on future videos, and hit the like button if you want to support future content of mine and this video. We'll see you on that next Marvel Snap video.